Okay, we're ready for the next panel. There's a slight correction if you may have your program. They mislabeled this session. This is the future of retail, right? The retail experience. So I am really thrilled. We have a fantastic panel today with people with incredibly deep expertise in this space. So we're going to learn a lot. So we have Tom McFadyen, who is the founder and CEO of McFadyen Digital. He's also an author. He has a new book out on marketplace best practices. And then Jonathan Yaffe, who's the founder or co-founder and CEO of AnyRoad, which is a really interesting new company that I think probably not that many folks know about outside of the kind of the space that you're in. So it's a great opportunity to learn.
But probably everyone in this room has used us, actually.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, we're going to have to tell us a little bit more about what you mean there. And we have, Merritt, who's come up from New York, and he has a new job. So very excited about him joining L'Oreal. And I've come to know L'Oreal over the last year and a half or so, and I didn't really have a sense of the size and scale of this company. So it is tremendous. And Merritt has tremendous background in e-commerce space. So we're going to have a great conversation. So what I'd like to do first is, just like you did with the last panel, is just give you guys a few minutes to introduce yourself, explain what you do in your company, and how it's relevant to our conversation today. So Tom, if you would start, please.
Great. Well, thanks. First, appreciate the opportunity to be here at the MIT Platform Strategy Summit. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. So McFadyen Digital, kind of two sentences, is we are a leading advisor and implementer of marketplaces. We've got a couple hundred professionals focused just on implementing marketplaces, and we've been doing that pretty much exclusively for the past 5 years. But the business, going into some of the history and how we got into doing marketplaces, I started the company 35 years ago and evolved through different technologies that enable different business models, from document management in the 80s to content management, static brochureware in the early 90s, e-commerce starting in the late 90s. Actually, with a company that formed out of the MIT Media Lab, ATG, was around the corner here in Cambridge. And then 15 years ago, kind of accidentally got into building marketplaces. We didn't call them marketplaces. We called it federated commerce. Some things were called exchanges in the B2B world. And it was really only about 8 years ago or so when the Platform Revolution book came out from Jeff and Marshall and Sangeet, that it started to codify the business model of platform businesses and marketplaces. And we really started saying, yeah, we're building marketplaces now. And about 5, 6 years ago, we decided that that's pretty much all we're going to do, as e-commerce we felt was getting a bit commoditized. It's very easy for anybody to start up a direct-to-consumer Shopify site for $29 a month now. And the value, the differentiation there is not in having a e-commerce site. That's pretty much table stakes. Anybody can do now. Marketplaces we view as the next generation of commerce, as platform business models with all the benefits that are so well explained in the Platform Revolution book. And we've launched these sites for e-commerce and marketplaces for over 10% of the Fortune 500, several hundred enterprise scale sites, a couple dozen that do over $1 billion a year of revenue. Working a lot in strategy now, as well as the technology implementation, oftentimes partnered with different software vendors that provide both the customer-facing commerce engine and the seller-facing marketplace engine. Peter mentioned we published a book. I was an Amazon bestseller for a couple of categories last year, and that's pretty much about it. Thanks.
Sounds good. Jonathan, you want to?
Can't wait to read the book. My name is Jonathan Yaffe. I'm the CEO and co-founder of AnyRoad. My first job after college was at a little company called Red Bull. I was one of the first marketing hires when Red Bull first came to the States, and this totally blew my mind because we were spending billions of dollars a year on experiences. We believed even back then that digital marketing was completely oversaturated. We see something like 14,000 advertisements a day. But you bring your best friends to this crazy Red Bull event, and there are people jumping out of airplanes, going down mountains on tricycles. DJs are playing, people are dancing, everyone's having an amazing time. And somebody comes up to you and hands you an ice-cold Red Bull. This actually creates an emotional bond that not only changes your perspective of the brand, but also changes your lifetime value to the brand. So we spend $1 billion a year. Clearly it worked, right? Red Bull has by far #1 market share. But it drove me absolutely crazy that we had no data. We had no understanding of who these consumers were and how experiences actually translated into revenue. So I launched AnyRoad because we started to see that pretty much every company that's thriving is becoming an experiential business. Right? We are transforming from a things economy into an experience economy, and I believe that the future of all of our lives and in retail is all experiential. I think traditional retail is completely dying, and that the retailers that will be around in 10 years will all be experiential companies that happen to sell goods on the side.
That's bold.
Couldn't agree more.
Mary, can you?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Very privileged to be here with the elegant guests and the audience here. Mert Damlapanar joined L'Oreal USA 4 months ago as the Director of E-commerce Strategic Insights and the Tech Products. And what we do basically with my team in the E-commerce Acceleration Initiative within the Corporate Digital Marketing Tower, we're building technology products for our divisions and brands to operate and move faster in the rapidly evolving e-commerce domain. As Peter mentioned, L'Oreal is a big ecosystem with 38 brands in a global markets. And there are so many different divisions with so many different products. There are different needs. There are different priorities. And we're trying to meet them in this relatively uncharted territory. And on the personal side, I originally studied molecular biology and genetics. I worked in DNA repair. I worked with multinational biotech companies for 5 years. Then I got frustrated with the speed of evolution, speed of innovation because of the regulation, because of the trials and procedures. I moved to the CPG side, and I worked in food and beverage companies for over 15 years. I moved to the United States in 2009, right after the recession. And at 2016, after different sales management and sales director roles, I realized that we're in a Bermuda Triangle, as I call it: sales, digital marketing, and data. And as it mentioned in the previous sessions, I started developing myself. I started getting continuous learning programs from prestigious universities like we are in today. And I first studied digital marketing for 2 years, and then I studied applied business analytics for 2 years at a master's capacity. Then I studied a little bit of applied data science on Python, and now I'm a blockchain developer student. I'm learning about blockchain, how we can build Web3 applications for the e-commerce ecosystems in our brands and our CPG manufacturers. And today, I'm happy to be here to looking into the evolving future retail ecosystem, how retailers are adapting to the e-commerce changes and the paradigm shift they're up to, and how brands, retailers, and the consumers are interacting with each other. So looking forward to learning from all you guys. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. So you can tell these guys know what they're talking about. Tom, can you help us kind of big picture the e-commerce space? Throw out some numbers as to the size and scale. And e-commerce isn't necessarily platforms. So can you help us with a little bit of the distinction between the two?
Certainly. Well, the distinction really goes back to the platform revolution, defining pipeline versus platform. In traditional retail or e-commerce, it's a sequence of activities that have to happen, very labor intensive: sourcing goods, negotiating contracts, loading them into an ERP, merchandising them, loading the SEO text, the imagery, setting the price, fulfilling the order, supporting them, processing the order in the middle there too. So that 8 or 9 steps is very labor intensive and linear scalability. Platforms, again, it's more of an exponential curve where you don't need to double your headcount in merchandising to double your SKU count. You don't need to double your fulfillment square footage or your fulfillment warehouse worker staff to double your order volume. It's much more exponential in the curve that you want to see instead of doubling. So much more nimble, much more resilient in terms of supply chain, as we saw in the pandemic, getting masks from Etsy versus your local retailer. Where could you source those? Ability to avoid stockouts for retailers, greater cross-sell, upsell, larger brand footprint, and literally dozens of different benefits for retailers that a marketplace offers over the traditional e-commerce business model. And there are hundreds of marketplaces operating, from the $1 trillion Alibabas to the $500 billion Amazons to $30 billion Mercado Libre in Latin America, and then many others from the Walmarts so forth, and going down a list. There are lists of hundreds of marketplaces that have been operating very successfully, much more profitably, much more faster time to market, time to value, time to revenue.
Gotcha. And does this include enterprises that may be selling products and services and then build a platform to allow third parties? Or are they just platform or marketplaces that have established to be those neutral parties to facilitate this exchange?
We see both. The existing retailers that have the customer base are good because of that chicken and egg problem. You have to buy the sellers and the buyers. You have to grow both the sellers and the buyers. So you've got the buyers in an existing established brand, be it either B2C retail or B2B distribution. You have some vendors, but you need to scale the seller side more quickly. Mm-hmm. But there have been lots of innovative startup marketplaces in existing categories. So you would think apparel, shoes. Amazon sells shoes. Why would somebody start a new marketplace for shoes? Well, StockX and Goat are two multi-billion-dollar marketplaces that started about 7 years ago.
Explain what StockX is.
They authenticate the value of your $1,000 sneaker that you want to buy. I've never bought a $1,000 sneaker, so I can't speak from experience.
So it's a super specialized platform just for sneakers.
And Goat is pretty much the same thing as well. Yeah. They're starting to expand, so if you wanted to buy, like when the PlayStation 5 first came out, for example, you could buy an authenticated PlayStation 5 by paying an extra few $100s. But if you buy it on eBay, you're uncertain if it's an authentic one.
Okay, great.
So there are certain value adds that make these marketplaces differentiated from the standard eBay, Amazon, et cetera. So there's certainly value add differentiators that can be driven.
So, Jonathan, the typical view is that a marketplace is for the exchange of goods. But you're in a completely different space. You mentioned that you're focusing on experiences. Are there such things as experience platforms?
Yeah, so in retail, we power everything from Dick's Sporting Goods, that is turning a lot of their stores into these House of Sports locations, to H-E-B, the grocery store chain that is doing online cooking classes. And one thing that a lot of these retailers are starting to do is realize that if they can bring the entire community in and actually create an experiential movement that's under their rooftop, where they own the payments, they own the data, and they own the community, that this is far easier to scale and far more powerful than just actually creating experiences. So you have some of these, like Nike, that's turning their stores into basketball courts because they don't care if you walk out with a pair of Jordans. They want you to try on Jordans and play basketball in the store against a Nike employee, and then you can walk out and buy it on your phone later. But you also have organizations like Michael's Art Stores that said, look, we used to have employees who taught art classes in Michael's locations. They have 1,255 locations, and they would teach art classes. And they said, but we could scale this a lot more if we could bring in every arts and crafts teacher in the United States to teach their own classes. So they basically built, on our platform, a marketplace for all of the best arts and crafts classes. And they brought on 20,000 art teachers, these local people. You guys could all teach painting classes on Sundays if you're free. You get to figure out your own price. You create your own content. All of this gets aggregated on our platform, white labeled on the Michael's website, and then they would market this on their channels, and people could go and take art classes or take their kids to art classes at their local Michael's. And Michael's was able to scale this to over 1 million art students per year, who not only were paying for classes, but also buying supplies through Michael's, right? And then Michael's would handle the fulfillment. And then, most importantly, these are 1 million art students and 20,000 art teachers who become part of this community, and Michael's gets all of that data. These are all people who are opting in to being part of Michael's arts and crafts community, and Michael's just started taking a ton of market share from Hobby Lobby, from Joann, even from Amazon art supplies. Because if you go to take a ceramics class at Michael's, you're probably not going to walk across the street to Joann to buy your clay. And they knew that. So by using this concept of a marketplace, you can actually scale these experiential programs much better, own all of that data, and really create that community you want to create.
Right, and there's the supply side too. You just made me realize that if my daughter, who's into art, wants to go to art school, maybe it's not such a bad thing because she could teach a course while she's in school and make some money on the side.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very interesting, very interesting. Cool. So turning to a big retailer that is, it's over 200 countries around the world, right, you sell into. What are you doing with platforms? I mean, most people don't think platforms and L'Oreal.
Yes, actually, it's a very timely question because L'Oreal, as a traditional CPG manufacturer and well-known brand globally, just launched its own B2B marketplace platform a month ago in June. And the goal is...
And the name is?
And the name is Salon-Centric. Probably you're familiar with Salon-Centric stores around the United States. There are 585 of them right now with stylists and different type of hair products you can buy into. But what the idea behind this initiative was, okay, we have this network already. We have our B2B customers, and marketplaces are much more profitable to operate, operational costs, and the data ownership is much more feasible with the e-com acceleration, and how we can position ourselves in a better competitive advantage when the other retailers, when the other platforms are also investing in the same direction. So Salon-Centric, within the first month, is moving towards from 100 vendors to 500 vendors towards the end of the year. And the vendors we're talking about here, not only hair products, there will be food and beverage, there will be apparel, there will be other accessories, furnitures, and let's not narrow down the focus to the hair salons only. There are spas, there are wellness, there are fitness, there are gym, and a lot of those businesses can benefit from tapping into the Salon-Centric to get their needs, to get their supplies, to get courses, trainings, and then go back to customers and make sure the L'Oreal experience and 38 different brands experience are well represented in those environments. And just to put some numbers on the conversation, so today, this B2B marketplace, less than a year old, has more than 1 million hairstylist professionals. Not only Salon-Centric employees, but all the other hair salons, wellness, and spa stores shopping from this one. An app has...
So just think, they're shopping for goods.
Correct.
But they're also shopping for knowledge and technique. And
yes, there are style courses, there are professional courses as well.
Provides those, or you go to third parties to provide those courses?
I'm not 100% clear on this because I'm relatively new on the organization, but I would assume L'Oreal provides these courses with the support of third-party organizations as well.
Gotcha.
And there are 875,000 app users. So these are the consumers, these are the brand loyalists, and these are other employees and affiliates of those organizations. And just another analogy, just Tom mentioned it. If you have Amazon Marketplace, why do you go and create your own marketplace? Amazon launched its own Beauty Salon under the Amazon Salon name in 2019 within the Amazon platform as a marketplace. So same purpose, same similar products, similar advantages. And they opened a store, physical store in London. So certain categories are more prone and more responsive to those kind of marketplace initiatives. And L'Oreal is a 100-year-old brand, so we have to position ourselves to be able to reach out to our consumers, to be able to engage with them, create those experiences, to Jonathan's point, because data ownership, experience, and having an influence on the consumer journey and creating those digital touch points, making those meaningful experiences, as many as digital touch points, as less as possible, not to cramp the environment, is our ultimate goal right now, because D2C brand interactions, customer journey within different channels. And all these channels are converging as we speak about it because we are in the industry. Consumer doesn't recognize those channels as we speak about them. There's no B2B, B2C, D2C acronyms for consumer. Consumers are looking for the convenience, speed, product assortment, and the low price. So no matter what channel we are in, no matter what methodology and capability, we deliver those convenience features for the consumer, then we're going to win in the long game. And it's currently evolving, it's rapidly shifting, and more adaptive brands will win in the long run, and we want to be one of those.
So Tom, a lot of manufacturers will say, hey, that sounds great, but I'm going to run into channel conflicts. Is that true, and how are there solutions to channel conflict?
Well, when manufacturers start selling direct to consumer and skip out on the channel, the resellers or the distributors, that certainly can be a challenge with channel conflict. There is a better approach with marketplace enabling channel collaboration. So AB InBev, the parent of Anheuser-Busch, has a great example of this that scaled to $500 million within a few years. Not in the US because of laws about distribution, but in Latin America, they started a B2B2C marketplace where you can order cold beer or other beverages on the AB InBev site, it's called Zay Delivery, and have it fulfilled by a local retailer. So it could be the convenience store down the road, but order the beer through the Zay Delivery. You still get your cold beer within 30 minutes. AB InBev gets the customer data. They get the sale of their goods and other goods. They get profit. The retailer still gets the sale, still gets profits, still gets customer data. So all the parties now get the data and the revenue and the profits.
Mm-hmm. So I did a little study on an experience marketplace by Richard Branson called Virgin Experience Days. So if you fly over to London, you have a weekend free, you can go onto their website and find all these cool experiences, like going out to a race car track and driving a sports car, or riding in a hot air balloon, or whatever it is. There's a ton of them on there. And what I realized from that is there were a bunch of these providers that were providing these things, but it was hard to discover them if you were, and then also the power of the brand. So I guess my question to you is, are there certain parties that have an advantage to come in because they have a strong brand and they're able to collect and aggregate these providers of experiences? And so does that mean the bigger companies, not necessarily the big tech companies we traditionally think of, but there's lots of other companies with very strong brands that probably aren't thinking outside of the box of the fact that they can leverage their brand to aggregate these experiences and deliver more value? Are you finding that's true?
Yeah, most of these experience marketplaces that are general don't work.
So what do you mean? Like
Airbnb experiences. Okay. So some of you know Airbnb started their own experience platform. This is a huge money loser. It loses about $1 billion a year. There are probably some great second order effects, right? People who probably stay at Airbnbs, who do experiences, are more likely to stay at Airbnbs again, so they keep it running. But it's not a really great business, right? And the few that are aimed at travel, like Get Your Guide and Viator are the two big ones. They're just kind of resellers, right? So when you look at experience marketplaces, there are two big things you want to look at. Number one is the price, mm-hmm. right? And number two is frequency of usage. And like, how often are you in London taking a hot air balloon? Like
not very
once
often.
In your life, maybe. Like, but how often are you gonna? If your kids love painting, how often are they gonna go take an art class? Pretty frequently. Right? If you're going to, go to Dick's Sporting Goods to, go to the batting cages, how often are you going to do this? Like maybe a couple times a month, right? So when we look at kind of frequency of experiences as the key metric for how healthy this community is and how vibrant the marketplace is, what we find is that verticalized marketplaces work far better than generalist ones. Meaning, during the pandemic, Nestle realized that a ton of people were buying puppies. Anybody here buy a puppy during the pandemic? It was like really popular. There you go. In any crowd, there's always a couple of people who bought puppies during the pandemic. And under the Purina brand, they're like, we want data on every single American who has bought a puppy. So they started a marketplace by bringing together all of the top puppy trainers. They call this puptrain.com. And they built this experiential marketplace where you could go on and discover puppy trainers, and it was all over Zoom because COVID, and this was really successful. They actually decided not to monetize it, so all of the money went directly to the puppy trainers. But what did they get? They got data on millions of Americans who bought puppies. All these people, by definition, opted into their marketing, and a lot of these people bought Purina dog food. Right? And for them, building that community was worth so much more than trying to monetize 5, 10, 20% of that marketplace. So the first reason people do that is to build the community. And just to follow up on something that Tom just said, the second thing is all about first-party data. Right? So AB InBev was actually our first customer. And if you drink Budweiser this evening, Budweiser will have no idea who you are. You could go out and drink a Budweiser every single night for the rest of your life, and AB InBev does not know your name. And this is a huge problem. This is a huge problem for CPG, right? In fact, you could go buy L'Oreal products at Sephora, and you don't know about this, right? So one thing that a lot of CPG companies have done as a result is to launch their own experiential programs with the specific idea of building direct relationships with their consumers, even if there's nothing that they can legally sell them directly, right? So AB InBev actually says, and this is public so I can say this, they say, our goal is to build a data set of over 50% of everyone in the United States who drinks beer. How are they going to do this? Like, no one buys, you're not allowed to buy beer from AB InBev in the United States, right? So they launched, I don't know if everyone's been to St. Louis, to the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. You can go visit the Budweiser Brewery if you're in Chicago, Goose Island. If you're in Los Angeles, it's Golden Road. They basically have these incredible experiences all over. They do a ton of stuff at music festivals. If you go to Coachella, they have like the Bud Light tent, and they do their own music festivals. They spend about $700 million a year in the United States alone on experiences, with the primary objective of first-party data and building these relationships.
Wow. So you're new to L'Oreal, so I don't want to ask tons of questions about how L'Oreal operates, but help us understand kind of what you're seeing in the marketplace and with respect to the future of retail.
Relevant to what Tom and Jonathan talked about, the marketplace effects, we are seeing a similar trend, and the relationship between the brands and the retailers are changing, because experience, access to the consumer data, and the speed of this access is tremendously important for brand anymore. One example. So if you run a marketing campaign to reach your audience for running some promotion or launching a new product, usually you need to wait for your market mix modeling report, which comes 1 month after minimum when the campaign is ended. So between the campaign start date and the report you're looking at to analyze the campaign performance, audience performance breakdowns, you're looking at least 3 to 6 months period. With the evolution of different media tactics, one being retail media, and also the advertising platforms, those retailers making more and more robust every year, now brands are able to get more granular data, not at the level of identity of the personal consumer, but at least we're able to granularly look into the audience with our customer segmentation, with the profile and the responses. So what I was going to say that is brands are becoming the customers of the retailers in this relationship. We were the suppliers. We're always going to be suppliers. But once in a while, we're trying to build our own platforms to create our own environment for consumers or B2B customers to shop from us as a provider. But we also become a customer of the retailers because of this data relationship. So retailer owns the first-party data. If you have a loyalty program, if you share your information with some of the opt-ins, so retailer has this granularity, and they know every single step of your shopper journey. And what they do, they monetize this information. There's a boom of the retail media networks in the United States and around the world. And for example, that Tom shared that Sephora, Ulta, even our main customers, main stores, are building their own retail networks. It's not Amazon, it's not Walmart anymore. All the other players coming into the field. This year, we're looking at $41 billion retail media ad spend. Last year, it was $31 billion, so it's pretty much 34% increase on the retail media ad spend from the brands on the retailer platforms. So this relationship makes brands build on their D2C capabilities, direct-to-consumer brand sites, just to be able to access the consumer, build this relationship, not only on a transactional point of view to make sales and grow revenue, it's always in the mix, yes, but also create those experiences, making the brand and product meaningful for the customer, increase the customer lifetime value, make those customer journey patterns more visible to our brand and marketing teams so we can define better products, define better experiences, innovate more effectively. So all this journey brings us to the future of the store. What the future of retail store will look like. We're looking at this from a mutually beneficial point of view because we have to collaborate with our retailer partners in the symbiotic relationship. So in the retail experience, we always have main three components. We have product, we have service, and we have experience. And we talk about experience a lot. And on the online side, where the digital commerce became suddenly the big elephant in the room, we have the marketplace, topic of the summit. Then we have quick commerce capabilities, which means quick digital payment, quick delivery, quick experience. And we also have social commerce futures, which means you just generated content, someone likes the product, someone has a great time with the experience, share their moment in the Instagram. Or we have ratings and reviews, which is number one or very powerful indicator of a product success on a digital commerce. So we have offline, we have online, and the center is consumer. The more this relationship gets symbiotic and it's more become collaborative between the brands and the retailers, now everybody benefits from multiple aspects of this relationship. One, data. So brands are building their data warehouses, retailers are trying to monetize them, consumer owns it, but they want their privacy, so data becomes more and more difficult to reach. Optimized supply chain, automated stores and fulfillment methodology, targeted marketing campaigns, personalized experiences. All this become the futures and the outcomes of this relationship. So that's where we are today. And believe me, no matter where we rank in a CPG 100 list or Fortune list, every brand is spending a lot of money and working too hard to get up to speed on this race, because nobody knows, nobody has the blueprint yet. It's evolving, we're learning on the go, and from category to category, it's similar experience: food and bev, beauty, personal care, apparel, electronics. And as I mentioned, some categories are more advantageous in this journey, like if you're an electronic brand, if you're an apparel brand, and if you're luckily a cosmetics brand, you will have better advantages and you will have better capabilities to invest into. Some of the other categories will have longer adaptation time. But our relationship is evolving, and we're trying to find our place and balance with our retailer partners as we constantly invest in different capabilities at the same time.
I could add on something. You made a great point about the different types of offerings. So we look at marketplaces for physical goods, marketplaces for digital goods, or including data, and marketplaces for services. And the more of those you have, the more you become from a two-sided marketplace to a three-sided marketplace to a four-sided marketplace. So example would be Etsy sells products. That's two-sided. They have buyers and sellers. DoorDash is three-sided. You've got the products, which is the prepared meal. You have the customer that's buying it, and you have a third-party service, the driver that's delivering it. Instacart is a four-sided marketplace. You have the food from the grocery store. You have the driver that's delivering it. You have the customer that's buying it. And you have the CPG brands that are spending money on the retail media networks you mentioned. And those retail media networks, Amazon did $31 billion last year on the retail media network, their ad platform. That's a huge way to monetize and build a moat, a more defensible moat around the marketplace or the business when you have 3 or 4 sides to your marketplace.
So I wanted to ask a quick question, spurred by what Merit said, about where does finance fit in? In the past, it was kind of like, yeah, I need a finance function to support my platform, but are we seeing an evolution where finance is becoming more important for the platform itself as a new revenue stream or a new value proposition?
Absolutely. So in the traditional e-commerce and even retail now, the BNPL, buy now, pay later, the Klarna, Affirm, PayPal, Pay4, there are a dozen of these companies that have been popping up left and right, have helped the consumer, the buyer, pay over time. Mm-hmm. There's also the side to help the seller get paid sooner. Again, you need to attract both sides of the ecosystem, the buyer and the seller. So Balance, for example, is one of the platforms we've integrated to help speed payment to sellers on the seller network. So you want buyers want to pay slowly, sellers want to get paid quickly. So those are those two things. And even other aspects like in the B2B procurement world, being able to consolidate multiple purchases onto one invoice is a highly desirable B2B procurement capability, and including payment. And as marketplaces scale from dozens to hundreds to thousands of sellers, some of the financial regulatory compliance activities like KYC, know your customer, AML, anti-money laundering, all these processes, the ability to automate that and make that aspect of the marketplace scale faster, the seller side, are really critical enhancements or abilities that some of these platforms enable.
Interesting. Well, I mean, Starbucks, we know now has become like a bank because so many people hold money on their cards, and so that's been pretty interesting. Help me with the future of loyalty and how experiences factor into that. And when you go out to customers and say, hey, you should do experiences and it has these benefits, does loyalty, because it's economically more advantageous to keep a customer than to try to go find a new one. Yeah. So interested how loyalty may play into what you're doing.
I don't use the word loyalty a lot. I use the word LTV, lifetime value, right? And so the way that a lot of these brands are looking at this is, how do we actually increase somebody's lifetime value? If, Peter, if you do yoga and you buy Lululemon yoga pants, but you buy one pair of yoga pants a year, it's like, what, $100? I don't know. That, and you're going to keep buying one pair of pants a year for 30 years, then you have a $3,000 lifetime value for Lululemon.
You've just given an image of everybody in this room having me wear yoga pants, but whatever. It's okay.
I thought I saw you this morning at the So Lululemon also realizes that if you start taking all of your yoga classes at Lululemon, you'll probably spend more money there and it will increase your lifetime value. So Lululemon spends $300 million per year on free yoga classes globally. You can go to Lululemon in Boston, Chicago, Tokyo, Sao Paulo, London, like wherever you want. There's at least one store in every city that is big enough that they have yoga classes there. In fact, they even started rolling out these new concept stores in Chicago that don't even have checkout kiosks. Why? Because they don't care about revenue per square foot. That's an antiquated metric. They care about you going in there and doing your monthly or weekly or daily yoga classes there, because they believe that people who take their yoga classes at Lululemon will have a higher lifetime value, spend more money at Lulu, not walk across the street to Athleta and buy your yoga pants there, right? So what we've seen is this massive shift from mostly CMOs and CDOs, right? From looking at conversion to looking at lifetime value. If you want to sell one additional pair of yoga pants, you go on Instagram and you say it's 20% off, and you will convert and you will sell an additional pair. If you want to actually say, look, we're going to turn Peter's $3,000 LTV into a $20,000 LTV, we've seen that experiences are by far the most advantageous way to do that. And now we can actually measure that because it's just a data problem.
Interesting. So I think the assumption was that manufacturers were sort of screwed in a digital economy because they didn't have the platforms, they didn't have these digital capabilities. But what you're, I just think, revealing, or at least some of these smarter manufacturers are recognizing, is they actually have a lot of position in the marketplace if they know how to add these additional added value capabilities.
Yeah, plus we see, I'll pick on a local company here for a minute, but we see and we can learn from the failures of the last generation, right? So when I was 13, I started shaving with Gillette razors. I've only exclusively shaved with Gillette razors my entire life. And when I was 13, I started shaving. Procter & Gamble held a 95% market share of men's razors in the United States. Today, it's at 45%. Why? Because Procter & Gamble has no idea who I am, right? What? Harry's came out, Dollar Shave Club came out, and guess what? It's not only a better economic model, they know who all of their customers are. They know how often you buy razors, they know whether you have a beard, they know whether you don't buy razors very much. They know what kind of razors you buy, they know where you live, by where you live, they can approximate your socioeconomic level, they know so much about you. And they basically just ate Procter & Gamble's lunch. Procter & Gamble had no way to actually have a DTC brand, nor any way to actually create that kind of community. So what did Procter & Gamble start doing in the last couple of years? Experiences, right? So now Gillette is spending a ton of money on experiential. They're doing big things at the Super Bowl that we support them at. They're doing things with esports. They're going all in on experiential, not because it's necessarily the right economic move, but it's the right move to actually build that community, have first-party data, and then they can actually sell directly to their consumers.
Yeah, I just have to mention something. If you go to the Harvard business site for case studies on platforms, you will not find a single case study on what he just mentioned, which is how you can drive leverage and build a platform to create new value. It's fascinating. So you're getting very cutting edge thinking here on this panel.
To build up on your question, whether manufacturers were prepared for the digital economy or not, what we see in the industry, in my personal opinion, retailers were not prepared for the digital commerce at all, because the model they were running on in the last century was traditional brick and mortar model based on pallets and truckloads of goods moved around and shifted from central hubs. They literally caught off guard. After the COVID, it was accelerated, yes, but it was first warning signs were already there in 2009, 2010. Because the future of the retail industry lies in a digitally enhanced experience, retail experience and retail. And what does it mean? They need to be engaged with more e-commerce oriented operation and more sustainable operation, more personalized offerings, and more integrated between online and offline. And manufacturers or brand caught up much faster than retailers in this regard. But the advantage of retailers, as Jonathan mentioned, is the first-party data and the relationship with the own consumer. So that's why where we're going to converge. Brands are trying to catch up with the first-party data ownership, trying to keep their relationship with the consumers and enhance this relationship, while retailers and the platform holders have this information already, and they monetize it with rewards and perks, and they're trying to attract more brands to invest more dollars on the advertising, promotions, coupons. So I just wanted to add this one. Manufacturers caught up much faster than retailers on the big tsunami wave of digital commerce revolution. Interesting.
So let's turn to what we spoke about in the last session, which is Web3. Do you see that coming in, and have any thoughts on Web3 and the future of the retail experience?
I think that's a little further out there. Obviously, the Metaverse, and as I think some financial analysts said, it's the risk of not getting into Metaverse now is far worse than the risk of getting in and failing on something. There's going to be something big happening. What that really is it virtual stores in Decentraland selling virtual sneakers? It's hard to say whether that's where it really is going to go. I think that's a pretty murky crystal ball. I would not want to make a prediction on that, but I think something's going to happen there, absolutely. What it is, I think the time will tell.
Well, it's interesting to see how many brands are out there trademarking for Metaverse. I mean, McDonald's, and I mean, it goes on and on and on. Yeah, so they're positioning to. Do you have any thoughts on Web3?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Our global CDO just coined a new phrase for us, hopefully for the industry. So we're talking about online and offline, and in the internal operations, we usually call it O+O, O&O. But she coined a term, L'Oreal is going for triple O. O, and it doesn't mean out of office. It means offline, online, on the block. So we are going for Metaverse. And L'Oreal just filed 17 trademarks for 17 different brands for the NFT applications, for digital goods sold on Metaverse, and some other capabilities where we can prepare ourselves and meet the consumer at the Web3 ecosystem. And this is the direction we want to go. And one example, I was just going to add this on the previous subject. Another cosmetics brand, and many others as well, are already selling digital goods on Metaverse stores like Zepeto or Dressed. And just to put it in context, let me give you an example. In a 2-week span campaign for the consumers aging between 14 and 23, one cosmetics brand was able to sell 150,000 units on Zepeto Metaverse store. What it means, she has an avatar on the Zepeto or Metaverse domain, and she likes to buy some cosmetics products for her avatar. And when I say buy cosmetics products, these are all digitally GIF images you can put on your avatar. Nothing is put on the skin. 150,000 units in 2 weeks. And the age group is Gen Z 13 to 24. So when Web3 wave hits, we're going to have a paradigm shift just like we had in the 90s when Amazon appeared, and we're going to have another one in 2001 when Facebook appeared. Web3 will bring us a much bigger tsunami, and we're preparing for that as L'Oreal.
So, I want to hear you.
For the other perspective, I think the Metaverse is bullshit. I'm a huge Web3 proponent. I was early in Bitcoin. I'm all about it. And I think that blockchain technology is really useful for things. But I also think that the consumer experience of at least the way that we're conceptualizing the metaverse now is great for gaming and basically nothing else. And my 6-month-old son is, I believe, never going to prefer to go to a Travis Scott concert in the VR world than a real life one. And I think the more that organizations start to really, really want the metaverse to happen, just so they can sell, digital goods, we're already starting to see the fatigue from that, right? So Gucci came out and they sold like tens of thousands of digital handbags. They made a bunch of money. This was great. Then they put out another collection and it didn't do so well. Why? Because people have way too much money to spend on, digital perfume and stuff like that. But at some point, like, there will come out cases where these are like utility NFTs, right? Where there will be utility from it.
Right.
But
so loyalty can be
absolutely. And I'm not saying there are no uses for it, but I'm saying that the metaverse as this concept, I know there are companies that really want the metaverse to happen, but and it will always be there, and I think it'll be primarily a gaming platform, but we are not all going to live in the metaverse, right? And the power of in real life experiences, especially we see now after things like a global pandemic, really are the things that keep us human and bring us together and connect us to brands that we really want relationships with.
Just to add on your point, and I agree with that on one, in the subject of our panel, future of the retail experience, alongside with the metaverse and Web3 enthusiasm, yes, it's going to happen and we'll see at some level, but on the real store experience of future of retail, I see a store, let's talk about a rectangle blueprint, right? And the 50% of this, let's start from the other end, 15% of the future of retail store will be consisted of the aisle of any store you think of, but dematerialized version of a typical store we know of today. So there won't be physical products, there will be interactive, well-enhanced, high-definition displays where you can walk through, and product catalog will be optimized according to your preferences if you're already in the system as a loyal customer, and you will pick and choose. This is the 15% of the future retail store. And the next 35% of the store is a dark store, attached to the exact same retail location, operating as a micro-fulfillment center. Some companies are doing that already. Best Buy, Whole Foods. Best Buy has turned every single store to a fulfillment center for local delivery in 1 to 2 days. Whole Foods are delivering Amazon Fresh orders as well as Whole Food orders. So we covered the half of the store with the aisle, 15%, dark store, 35%. What happens the remaining half of the store? Experience. Because it's going to be like boardwalk environment where there's recreational areas, brand, store-in-store experiences. People can use 5 senses. Whatever the product has available features for 5 senses, sight, taste, smell, touch, like Nike basketball field. So this will be the experience building platform where we can increase the engagement and the lifetime value of the consumer and then enhance this brand loyalty, brand relationship. Then they can purchase the product anywhere they want because they're not aware of any channel distinction like we do. Yeah. They don't care if it's fulfilled online, offline, or in Web3. They're going to buy it if the experience is worthful enough. So this is the future of retail store we see coming.
And this is what's happening in China, which is 15 years ahead of us. Everyone buys everything on their phones, right? So does retail cease to exist? No, the opposite actually. Alibaba, which we've heard a little bit about earlier today, they're opening physical shopping malls in China. And when I heard this blew it wasn't surprising, but it kind of blew my mind. They're like, wait, Alibaba, digital first, everything on your phone is opening physical shopping malls. Why? Because if you can experience the products, if you can experience the brands, you are more likely to buy things. They don't care where you buy it. You can buy it in the metaverse, you can buy it on a marketplace, you can buy it wherever, right? But your behavior actually changes based on the experiences. And now we see digital first DTC brands like Warby Parker, Away bags, Allbirds shoes that started only online direct to consumer, and now they're all opening physical stores. Why? Because people want to try stuff on, people want to experience things, and this actually results in increased purchase behavior, even if they're not looking at the stores for revenue.
Yeah, great. So we're running out of time, so I want to respect that. Thank you very much. And just a little pitch for the NFT holders out here. These guys write, post, speak all the time. So over the next year, please follow them, and it will count to sustaining your NFT. So thank you so much. A
Thank
fantastic
you.
panel.